One thing to note right away is that due to seasons 4 through 6 being shorter than usual, it's actually this episode that marks the show's halfway point. Typically, this is the place in a story where the setup is finished and the payoffs begin. Would you care to bet how this show handled that? Anyway, it's time for the usual one flashback per seasons for Claire. It's before we've even seen her before, as signified by her black hair, and her mother is put in a coma by a car accident. There's a scene with a cop just so Claire can say her father died when she was 2, and then there's a bit of her Aunt Lindsay being a bitch to her before being told that her mother's bills have been covered by an anonymous source. A bit later, Claire finds out her mother has a new doctor, none other than Christian Shepherd, who reveals that he's paying the bills and Claire is the daughter he was trying to see back in Two for the Road. This might have been an effective moment if it wasn't for the tiny little fact that everyone had already figured it out, because Claire was literally the only person it could be. It's pretty unclear what happens after that, because the next thing we see is Christian coming to see Claire at work at a piercing store. I kinda get the feeling this was planned to lead to a connection between her and Bai Ling, and we can all be thankful that episode went over so badly that none of its events are ever mentioned again. He wants to convince Claire to let her mother die, which is a position that could be treated with some sympathy, which seems to be how they want us to see it. But that all goes out the window with a line that suggests he actually wants to sneak into the room and kill her himself. You just can't let him be anything but the guy who's responsible for all of Jack's flaws, can you? Finally, we skip ahead to when Claire is pregnant and visits her mother, who's still in a coma. And yes, this is the same person who Claire was so worried would be angry about her being pregnant back in Raised by Another. Whoops.
It's an electrical wiring map, Saeed. I'm not sure it's as accurate as you think.
Well, it's certainly not as infallible as the magical carvings on your stick.
Hey, the stick did get us to that station.
Oh, the station which you accidentally blew up.
Well, if you'd have warned me that the basement was rigged with C4, I might have been a little more careful.
Guys, Mikhail will marry both of you! It probably won't come as a surprise that I'm completely on Saeed's side here, especially given a certain scene that's coming up. Desmond goes through what's clearly now become his daily routine of telling Charlie what to do so he doesn't die, which really amuses me. Then Claire suddenly gets a bright idea and runs off. Par for the course, then. She explains that the birds that just arrived have been tagged by scientists, so she wants to catch one and put a message on it about their situation. Charlie is less than thrilled.
How do you even know this stuff about birds, Claire?
I watched a lot of nature shows with my mum.
Doesn't exactly make you an expert.
Shut up, Charlie. Yes, it will turn out he has a reason for acting like this, but it's not enough, as I'll explain. Kate asks Danielle why she hasn't shown any interest in Alex. What, on this show? How is that different from business as usual? Danielle replies that Alex has spent her whole life not knowing her, and she's afraid to know anything about Alex in turn. It's a moving scene, and Mira Furlan is a good enough actress to carry it, pretty effortlessly showing up Evangeline Lilly at every turn. They talk to Mikhail some more, and he says they're not capable of understanding what the others are doing because they're not on Jacob's list, because they're flawed. It will later turn out that all of them are on Jacob's list because they're flawed. Sometimes this show chops a continuity with a meat cleaver. Desmond screws up Claire's first attempt to catch a bird by shooting his gun and says he was hunting, and usually in this show people would just accept that, but Claire doesn't and quickly figures out that he doesn't want her to succeed. Maybe that's why her screen time has been cut down so much since season 1. If she was still a major character, she'd probably have solved every mystery by now. The Get Jack Back team finds a group of metal pylons that Saeed figures out is a security system that's set off if anything passes between them. Mikhail confirms this and says they circle the entire village, but it doesn't matter because they haven't worked for years. Locke then decides to be randomly awesome and tests that statement by shoving Mikhail through them, and they do something to him that doesn't look good. Wow, as long as he's not distracted by chess, he's a total badass, I guess. Locke tries to justify killing off their one bargaining chip, which is such obvious bullshit that I'm surprised he doesn't try to pull the sacrifice the island demanded card. Kate, of all people, gets the idea that they can rig up a way to go over the pylons, and while looking through Locke's bag for equipment, Saeed discovers some of the C4 from the flame.
I thought you didn't know there was any C4.
Well, I stand corrected.
And yes, we are actually meant to accept that as an
You never know
answer.
when a little C4
Locke
might
has
come in
just
handy.
been demonstrated to have blown up the
You'll have
flame
to do that.
deliberately, gives no explanation why, and we're not supposed to question it because that's how little these writers think of us. Charlie gives some BS about Claire's accusations that he doesn't want the bird idea to work, but Claire doesn't buy it for a second and ultimately breaks up with him again. She's kind of awesome in this episode. The Get Jack Back group cuts down a tree so they can climb over the pylons, and to my eternal amusement, Kate is the one selected as the guinea pig for it, and to my eternal irritation, it works and she doesn't die. Claire follows Desmond and sees him march up onto a particular rock and catch a bird, and keeps up the winning streak when she immediately realizes he must have known it was there. Desmond reveals the whole thing and says that today he saw Charlie slipping off a rock while trying to catch a bird and being killed, explaining why Charlie was being such a dick about it. Except, no, it doesn't explain anything. If Charlie knew about it, he could have just not gone there and not been such a jerk about Claire's idea and not sabotaged it either. So I still say, shut up, Charlie. Charlie reads the message they've attached to the bird over the usual montage, including Sawyer reading the fountainhead. Dude, I get that your reading options are limited, but it's not worth it. And then they send the bird out, and we never hear of it again. The Get Jack Back team arrives at the village and are shocked to see what first appears to be Jack trying to escape is just him having fun with Tom. Yeah, I have no problem buying that he'd be that weak-willed. My score for Par Avion is 9 out of 10. The whole Claire subplot is once again complete filler, but at least it gives her some much-needed screen time after she'd basically become a glorified extra for about a year. And the A-plot of finding the village just works from beginning to end, with a real sense of forward progression that the show had been lacking for quite a while. The big reveal in the flashback is a bit of a letdown, but it still works well also. Around this point, I really was starting to think the show was getting back on track. Let's see how long that lasted.